Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we finished off book 2. It also brought us in close to the 4th year of the war. We're now on to book 3, which should bring us fully into this war. Now, as you can see, I have to be very careful with this book. So if I don't move the pages very quickly, and it's what takes us an extra second, I do apologize, but the binding is getting... It's going. But I will do my best to make sure I can show you guys this as we want to see. Oh, I lied. It was the 5th year now. My bad. Yeah. Okay. Well, usually I do actually start off with this, and it gives a little idea of the past. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to read this verbatim, because as you can see, it's a lot of text. But I'm going to give you a general synopsis of what each of these big paragraphs says. So, this first one talks about 1943, and it's talking about the beginning of the invasion of Italy. Talking about how the Italians were kicked out of Africa, and then Sicily was taken over. And then right here, this talks about more of the Pacific offensive and getting over the general ideas of the island hopping strategy and the current islands that the Americans and the Australians are going through. And this is obviously talking about how the Soviets are pushing back the Germans, and so all the gains the Germans have are not going so well. And this gives us a little bit of an idea in the future here. Italy's a stalemate in Italy, so there's a map here, and I'll kind of show you. Eventually, there will be pretty much a stalemate right around, I believe, no, right here. Right around Rome, that area. The Marshall Islands, talking about the taking of the Marshall Islands. And then Tehran, which is considered the most important political development. Both the conferences held at Cairo and Tehran. But we're now on to what the series is called, the actual pictures. And so here we are with the Allies move into Europe. September 3rd, 1943. Italy invaded. On the morning of September 3rd, British troops under the command of General Sir Bernard L. Montgomery crossed the narrow strait at Messina and effected landings at Reggio, Calabria, and the invasions of the continent of Europe was underway. The 8th Army proceeded to make advances along the east and west coast, and on the 9th, the Allies took a long gamble and won as the Anglo-American 5th Army, under the command of Lieutenant General Mark Clark, established a beachhead at Salerno. It was probably the riskiest overseas offensive since the British landed at Gallipoli. Yeah, and you can see, obviously right here is where they're talking about the little landings. I mean, not little, but the landings from the little strait. And yeah, as of right now, this is a big deal. The landings here are more or less it's the British, it's what they wanted. They thought of Italy as the soft underbelly, things like that. At this time, Il Duce, Mussolini, is kicked out. Funny Mustache Man has moved German troops down into Italy, basically, to defend Italy. But the Italians don't necessarily want this war anymore. They're ready for it to be over. There'll be a little bit political upheaval in Italy for a little bit here, but it'll get figured out. Invasion of Italy opens the 5th year. September 3rd, 1943. Messina Strait crossed. In the early dawn of September 3rd, 1943, the fourth anniversary of Great Britain's declaration of war against Germany, British troops under the command of General Sir Bernard L. Montgomery crossed the narrow strait separating Sicily from Italy and landed in Calabria, pushed north to San Giovanni and Palmi, actually, I think is how it's supposed to be pronounced. On the same day, the signing of a secret military armistice between the Bad-Ogolio government and the Allies, effective September 8th, was announced. While the landings were going on, planes from bases in Africa bombed the railroad yards at Bolzano, Trento, and Bologna. At Bolzano, the bridge carrying trains to Brenner Pass was smashed by explosives. The men of Montgomery proceeded to push east along the bottom of the Toe as American and British shore batteries in Sicily and the guns of Royal Navy units covered a continuous movement of reinforcements and supplies across the narrow strait. For several days prior to the actual invasion, the guns of HMS Rodney and Nelson had shelled German defense posts along the Calabrian shore, and the invaders did not encounter much difficulty as the initial landings were made. In this picture, fog curtains the activities of British 8th Army as they reached the Italian mainland. A landing craft unloads men and materials for the start of what was to be the crusade to rescue the Eternal City from her Germanic conquerors, and also restore the Italian way of life to the suffering inhabitants of Italy who had been kept under the heel of their own leaders and the German hordes. Yeah, so you can see just from that, the narrative is kind of shifting around Italy, and just in these books, which was, the Italians, they didn't want to be a part of this. They were under duress from their own government and from the Germans. And so, they didn't actually want this war, things like that. They did, but they didn't. Italy was kind of upset with how they were treated after World War I. So a lot of people did want this war to take over more stuff. After the war started going not in their favor, they realized, no, this is not fair. Now, obviously, there were always people that did not want war. Yes, of course. But a lot of Italians did. However, it is also interesting, obviously, that they're talking about, we got to save the Eternal City, which they're talking about Rome, obviously. They're actually specifically talking about the Vatican. They're going to save the Vatican. But yeah, so the narrative is clearly shifting here, saying, hey, look, the Italians aren't so bad, which is fair. It's good to try to paint the Italians, they're not just the Italians, any civilians as, they're not actually, they didn't want a part of this war. One, because if that gets back to your people, it helps them go, okay, we won't be so rude to them. They didn't want to be a part of this, things like that. It helps create a idea of, they were just controlled, they didn't do it themselves. Which a lot of people will then look over the transgressions during the war to help create a better future, which is what is the best. And it would have been best if that happened in World War I, honestly. The war spit kicks the toe of Italy. September 3rd, 1943. Reggio Calabria takes a lancing. A lancing? The forward 15-inch guns of HMS Warspite hurl shells at the Italian mainland, clearly seen in the background of the picture on the left. Right here. You can see them shooting. As the 8th Army under General Sir Bernard L. Montgomery opened its offensive on the morning of September 3rd, prior to the actual invasion of the Italian mainland, the British battleships Rodney and Nelson had shelled Axis defensive posts along the Calabrian coast, and this softening up was of great advantage to the British and Canadian troops. Aided by the guns of the Royal Navy and covered by an umbrella of Allied warplanes, the landings were carried out with minimum losses, and the invaders pushed north to San Giovanni and thence around the Palami. In the picture above, so this one right here, I'll zoom in for you guys. In the picture above, 8th Army Infantry assault troops gather on the Catania quayside, awaiting orders to embark in the landing craft that will speed them to Italy, and the first step towards the invasion of the continent of Europe. So yeah, they're going to talk much about this invasion, and I hope you guys are ready for that, because this invasion's huge. It does slow down eventually, but it opens up that second front, and it doesn't necessarily make Stalin the most happy, but it'll appease him for a bit until another event not too long from now. But with that, we're going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I really appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.